Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us today as we take a deep dive into the latest PetroVisor platform release. I'm Braxton Huggins, Chief Marketing Officer here at Datagration. Presenting today, we have our CTO, Kenton Gray, and our Director of Software Development, George Swigert. Before we start, I'm going to give a brief overview of PetroVisor. Traditionally, oil and gas companies are built on legacy systems and data sets that tend to be siloed, with little to no connectivity between systems, data, and people. Decision-based workflows must be formatted and analyzed in a high-touch, time-consuming manual process that's prone to errors and limits scalability and extensibility of the technology. The oil and gas industry is challenged now more than ever. Today, in order for us to make informed decisions, we're required to analyze large volumes of data from many disparate data sources and applications quickly. This is where PetroVisor shines. For those that may be new, and this is the first time hearing of Datagration and the PetroVisor platform, the PetroVisor platform simplifies the way companies aggregate, process, and analyze data, removing the constraints of traditional decision-making and automating consistent versions of reliable and verifiable data. When million-dollar decisions ride on making smart use of that data, it can be difficult to have confidence in your analysis. Through knowledge automation and being commercialized for the last 10 years, the PetroVisor platform delivers a common set of technical and business rules and reusable components, thus eliminating data silos and enabling E&P companies to quickly and efficiently automate workflows and run them at scale. We're not a data integration tool or data lake, not a workflow builder. It's not an AI or ML application, and the platform is not just a visualization tool. PetroVisor platform is a platform that consists of all of those elements in a single instance. Whether deployed in the cloud or locally on-prem, PetroVisor keeps you informed of any data anomalies in your operations while maintaining an audit history of all changes. It can be integrated with popular collaboration tools like Microsoft Teams or deliver data outputs in widely used visualization tools like Power BI, Spotfire, and Tableau. By doing this, companies can improve cross-asset workflows, automate business processes, and mitigate risk all on a single, open, and collaborative platform that is easy to implement, maintain, and extend. We find the most common areas of the PetroVisor platform being deployed are focused on well performance optimization, ESG optimization, capital development, and enhanced oil recovery optimization. Each of these core focus areas comes with standard workflows and engineering packages that solve specific petrotechnical challenges. These are constructed by eliciting knowledge from human experts and coding it into a form that can be used by an engineer in the evaluation of alternative solutions to problems within that domain of expertise. From the subsurface to the topsides, this full field approach eliminates the need to have single-use solutions for every pain point or challenge the engineers face, and allows PetroVisor to automate and integrate across the entire enterprise. From here, I'll turn it over to Kenton and George. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat if you're watching here on YouTube, and we will answer them at the end of the stream. Kenton, it's all yours.
Thanks, Braxton. So I'm really excited to talk about the new UX in PetroVisor. Our entire team has been working really hard on this, and I think the results are great. So what we've done is we've taken the powerful PetroVisor platform and brought it into a new interface where we're really focused on ease of use, consistency, and making it easy to do really hard things. And so the team and our UX designer work together to really get to the core things that our engineers are doing every day and make it as simple as possible. To do that, we went and standardized all the interface to make as few options as possible, and use things like standard search bars and actions in the top right where we focus on the primary things that people want to do. All this comes together to make it where someone can start using the PetroVisor platform with little to no training, allowing them to really dive in and just click around like you would on a Facebook or Gmail or Office 365. A few things I want to point out that one is, as a tech person, I really love this feature. We support dark mode. So that makes it where it's not as bright and hard on your eyes. So if you use that on your OS, that's going to be available to you. And also just a real kind of ease of use on here. So I'm going to drill in to a few things and kind of explain some key elements to the PetroVisor platform. So let's start looking at a signal here. And what a signal is, it is a piece of data that we're capturing in the PetroVisor platform. Like Braxton said, we're bringing in data from all these different systems, and PetroVisor standardizes them using things like a SQL database or an Excel spreadsheet, and it can be from multiple sources, and it's going to automatically be brought into the system. PetroVisor is built for oil and gas engineers, so all the things that they're used to using, like flow rates, volumes, those are all understood by the platform. And unit conversion is something that happens automatically. So if I'm getting something in a unit like barrels, that can be converted to metric, it can be converted to MCS, all those conversions happen automatically. And it doesn't matter what the source system is, it's going to automatically port in. As part of the UX, we're able to really focus on giving you, oops, let's switch this. We're able to focus on bringing out important information at a glance. So you can see here that we have a lot of helpful things like what scripts is this being used in, what filters is this being used in, as well as some quick stats. And we want to bring out the information that's in the system. We're capturing millions of points of data. And you can see here that we're looking at the current gas rate on an entity. I can see this one has a very low rate, so I might want to go and investigate that. So when I jump in here, I'm going to an entity, and what an entity is, it's how we link that data to something in your portfolio. So a common example is that you are probably looking at something like a field, and your field has wells. On those wells, there might be a pump, and on that pump, there might be an IoT sensor or some sort of record that we want to bring in. We understand the hierarchy of that data, and we can bring it all together into one place. And if you want to look at things from different perspectives, maybe from a county level, or you want to look at it from a cultural level, all that's going to be built into the application. As I'm looking at these entities, I can see helpful information that we call tags. I can see that this has actually been flagged as a workover candidate, likely because of that low gas rate. And I can see that this well has been active since 2015. I can see it's currently pumping, and I can even drill down and see any of these pieces of data. What's really nice about how PetroVisor works in understanding the language of oil and gas is that we're bringing in all this data, and it can come in, it can go. You might have some wells that might not have that data. That's totally fine. We expect that, and we have a lot of tools to help you understand exactly how this all works together and how you can deal with that uncertainty and noisy data. So whether you need to clean it, whether you need to go and do some gap filling or assumptions about the data, all that is built in. As I mentioned, all this information can be set up in hierarchies. And so as we look at this, we can see that we can create layers of elements on here that have children. This is really helpful for looking at things from different perspectives for your reporting purposes. All this comes together to really allow you to get that data that you need and really extend it with some of the things that George is about to show. So I think I'll pause there and let George really get into the meat of it. And looking forward to coming back and showing you some of the outputs of this.
Thank you, Kenton. Before I talk about the new user interface, let me give you a little background information about how we handle data. PetroVisor can ingest data from various sources. Kenton mentioned that, like databases like SQL or Oracle, flat files, and many more. But, and this is the important part, during the integration process, the information is abstracted from the source to match what we have in PetroVisor. So you see here, we have an entity called well space 100, and the signal is called gas production rate. In your source, however, this well might be called well underscore 100, well 100 without the space. Your gas production rate might just be called gas rate or just gas or whatsoever. And as Kenton mentioned, the unit in your source might not be labeled at all. So during the mapping process, it's key that you map out what's the entity, what's the signal, and what's the unit. As we all know, for automating knowledge, the consistency is key. So that's why we have those mapping processes in the data loading. So once the data integration is set up for example, by a power user, it's ready for the engineer. And that's the key part here. PetroVisor is made by engineers and it's made for engineers. Especially this new X is driven by ideas some of our engineers had. So let me give you a quick example. I've been loading a test data set here, which is called Field C gas producers. So with a single click on the statistics button, I get an idea about my data quality. There is this box plot view, of course. Sometimes another visual might be more helpful. So I'm going to the histogram, and actually this looks pretty reasonable. But on the box plot, I saw that some of the wells have outliers. Those outliers are detected by this. You can read it up on Wikipedia. Actually, it's interquartile range factor. So everything that falls outside 1.5 times the interquartile range is considered an outlier. You can, of course, also just have a look at your data in the charts here. So once you click charts, it's going to bring up, and this is a little noisy because it's a lot of wells that I loaded here, but you can just click here. The same is true for the stats and the charts. Whenever you identify something like an outlier, you can just click it. It's going to take you to the grid, and you can go, okay, wait a second, this is too high, and you can actually correct it. So let me just drop the 7 here and make it a 4. And now if I go back to my charts, that's going to be fixed. The same, of course, is true for the stats view. So if you detect an outlier here, for instance, this one, just click the point. It's going to take you to where it is, and you can either fix them or investigate why it is. Is it a legit value or not? So what are we going to do with all that data once it's in? Let me switch over to the develop part here. PetroVisor is a platform. So we implemented our own domain-specific scripting language that we call P#. And what we try to do with P# is make scripting and prototyping as easy as possible. Let me give you an example. I'm going to load a quick script here. This script basically just loads the oil production rate and gives you the year of first production. The important thing is if I run this script, this acts like a sandbox, so you cannot mess up your data set. So if you look at your data and you go, okay, wait a second, let me first add a round statement because all those values look a little odd. You can play around with it and just go, okay, let's go round this value to just 2 digits after the comma. And now I can just run it again and nothing will happen to my actual source data that's in the database. Everything in here is just being run in a sandbox so you can play around with it. There are functions available, of course. So we try to make scripting as easy as possible. There's auto-completion, there's IntelliSense. So for instance, if you type in moving, it will give you all the functions, like you could do a moving average, and then you have all those IntelliSense helps and hints that tell you how to use this function in P#. And that brings me actually back to the engineer. So when we started working with PetroVisor and engineers, we figured that most of the engineers spend 70–80% of their time gathering data from various spreadsheets, different databases, and then they're trying to build the logic, which is their actual engineering work, right? But here you can just jump straight to the engineering part because you have a fully consistent and consolidated data set at your fingertips. And just to mention this as well, we're committed to continuously extending the power of the platform. So expect new P# functions that are super useful. Expect new modules as we go along for the next couple weeks and months and years. We have a pipeline. As a development director, I can tell you there is some exciting stuff coming up ahead. Last but not least, What are we going to do once we have the data in and all those P# scripts written or pulled from libraries? We're going to build a workflow. Let me quickly just load a very simple workflow. This is, of course, really a very simple example. Our actual workflows usually are much longer, but this just illustrates what can be achieved with a workflow. So first, in this example, we'll have the incremental data import, in that case, from a SQL database. Then we have a P# script for pre-processing, for KPI calculation. And here's where the actual power comes in, because we have built a library of packages, of scripts, of snippets and workflows, and we pre-packed all of our knowledge from previous projects, from our own experience, into reusable building blocks and workflows. In fact, with all that packaging, we are able to deliver projects within days and weeks instead of months or even years. So in your P# script, you can, in your workflow, you can, of course, use other activities too. For instance, here's an R activity. In case you have data scientists in your company or you have existing R code, you can, those R activities come in handy, because all you have to do is follow a certain interface and then map out what PetroVisor will pass to that R function. This simple example, you see the R function expects oil and water. Again, the mapping approach, there might be an oil rate or oil volume. So I'm going to pass the oil production rate and the water production rate, and the return is the liquid. Of course, we're going to map that to the liquid production rate. There is more. So you can even use external activities, which basically is a piece of .NET code. So what we have done, for instance, is this auto DCA function that tries to find the best fit based on your input. You see this item has arguments that must be mapped first. You see it waits for a production signal for the cumulative production. You can, of course, use this then in PetroVisor, especially with a new UX, will make it as easy as possible for you to build your own workflows and build your own solutions on the platform. So our customers with this new UX can build their own stuff, or reuse pre-configured blocks, or automate their own knowledge. And as you can see, it's actually super simple. Back to Kenton.
Great. Thanks, George. So as George said, what happens is that we have these workflows that really extend your data with solutions, potential optimization opportunities. And then we have a lot of different tools for visualizing and analyzing that data. So I'm going to show you one of our favorite, which is maps. So I can actually see in this example, we have a combination of public and private data that is loading in about 20,000 wells from Midland and the Permian Basin. So I can see right now that I'm looking at all the different operators. I can see information about these wells. I can actually drill in and see more on there. But what's really powerful about this is all the new data that you're bringing in through these workflows that either you're creating or we're bringing into the system. You can actually analyze the data. So this is a lot of wells. I'm going to limit this to the top performing wells. And you're going to see that this quickly drops this down. And I can go and see these are the ones that we've identified as being top performing. A few things that we can do on here right away is we can obviously use satellite view. So if we want to see the specific pads that it's on, that's easily available to you. Things like the layers allow you to extend different layers that you might have in Esri that we might be generating through our workflows. A good example of that is that we have what we call constrained Voronoi grids. And so when you generate a constrained Voronoi grid, what this is doing is it's understanding the relationship between different wells and their drainage areas. So if you have wells that are closely positioned, they're actually going to be bounded by the other wells on there. These are used for our calculations when we're recommending different actions on the wells. So again, I can look at all these different pieces of data. For example, if I want to see the operating status of these wells, any piece of data that's in the PetroVisor platform can be brought up. And I want to just re-emphasize that the beauty of the PetroVisor platform is not a fixed data list. So if you want to add a signal, if you have something that you're tracking that's not a common thing, or you have your own methodology, it's as simple as bringing it in. You can start looking at that immediately. So I'm going to hide this real quick. The other nice thing about these maps is that we actually have the ability to use 3 dimensions for looking at different things. So I'm going to pull up Cumulative Oil Ray. And I can go and look at this and see that most of these wells are performing pretty similarly, but I can see there's some real dominators here. So I can actually drill in to the specific well and see what's going on here. Is this actually accurate? Is there something else that's going on? Again, using these different stats, I can view any piece of information I want. So maybe I want to look at the oil production over time, and I can see that this guy has had a massive spike. So using this, you can really make informed decisions about your data. And then one of my favorites is being able to use the height metric. So I'm going to go and pick, let's just do vertical depth. This can be any signal on here. And as you can see, what it's going to do is it's going to use that size and that depth. So I can actually see from a 3-dimensional perspective that piece of data. So you can see these are actually much shallower than these high performing wells. Again, all of this, this isn't something that we're going and configuring these maps. This is something that any user of the PetroVisor platform can build any map they want in seconds just by clicking a few buttons. So we really want to make this something that is highly accessible and highly extendable based upon all the data we're bringing in. The last thing I want to show is our dashboards. So we've gone and brought in the Power BI platform. So I will emphasize that we can use any reporting platform, whether it be Tableau or Spotfire. So if you already have a reporting strategy in place, we'll work with that. But a lot of our customers, especially ones who are smaller companies, they might not have that first step. And so we wanted to allow them to quickly get started, not have any sort of additional licensing fees, and have Power BI embedded in the application. So what we're looking at here is a dashboard. And this is going to go and be able to bring in not only information from the system, but also external information. So we're bringing in stock information. We have kind of a news site here. This is an example of how you could bring in your own customer information, or your own maybe company updates, things that you want to make sure everyone's on the same page about. And then when we drill into the dashboards, we can go and actually look at some of these. So let's go pull up this completion summary. What this is a dashboard that we use for our unconventional analysis to understand how people are performing relative to others. What are the kind of parameters that have the most success? So you can see here that we have some basic stats and information about the operators. This nice map view, which you can actually drill in and see that Voronoi like we were showing before to understand the drainage area. But what's really nice about this is everything is fully interactive. So if I say, you know what, I just want to focus on XTO wells, I can just click right here, and that's going to automatically filter everything immediately. I can even do things like if I want to focus on a specific region, just simply draw a bounding box, and that's going to go and live update all this information that's on these reports. We have various tabs of information. So if I want to see the parameter comparison, you can see right away the trend lines are pretty strong on these. Being able to understand this and looking at all these different pieces of data very quickly. So we're bringing in millions of pieces of data into the system to be able to do this analysis. We have a set of reports that we distribute to all of our customers, but that doesn't mean you can't create your own or extend, or we can create custom ones for you based upon the data. We released a Power BI connector, and we also have connectors for Spotfire available. So you can just use the PetroVisor platform and really separate your data analysis and your engineering work from the visualization. So all these values are all being built from those workflows that George just described. So that is at a really high level the new user interface of PetroVisor. There's a lot more here. So I hope that this is helpful for everyone and helped everyone get a perspective of it. And again, I thank everyone for joining us, and I really want to thank the team who's been working so hard on this for really making something I think is really impressive. I'll pass it back to Braxton.
Awesome stuff, guys, and definitely shout out to the entire team behind the scenes that has been working long days and nights to make this happen. So for those that are still with us, I won't make you read all of these, but I want the takeaway to be that PetroVisor is a holistic platform. Built on an open API, we've gone through the process of developing integrations and bi-directional connectors to popular domain solutions. The platform is secure and will meet any IT and governance needs. Our economics engine allows for easy views for future investment opportunities. And with the collaboration with Microsoft Teams, it simplifies how your team is notified when something important happens. Our performance analytics combined with our configurable workflows helps drive knowledge automation and empowers users to make actionable decisions with real-time insights into patterns and trends. In closing, I want to reemphasize that PetroVisor is a proven platform, currently being used in over 260 fields and has evaluated over 20,000 well opportunities. And because, like George said, we're constantly extending and improving the platform, so you never have to worry about falling behind your competitors while using PetroVisor. So instead of wasting time on costly, outdated processes or manually engineered single-use workflows, PetroVisor can help generate the insights you need to make smarter business decisions and stay one step ahead of your competition. From here, I will open it up for Q&A. If anybody wants to ask a question, just drop it into the comment section and we will answer it. Okay, so for Kenton, what data sources does PetroVisor connect to typically?
Yeah, I'd say that the most common ones are SQL and Excel. Pretty much everyone has a lot of data in Excel spreadsheets, and so we have really nice integration tools to bring those in batch. So if you have a folder full of Excel or an S3 bucket full of Excel files, we can just start bringing that in. We do have more kind of things that we see a lot, such as grid data, your simulation data, LAS files, scattered PI systems, and data like that is very commonly brought into the system. And I'll also make a point to mention that everything that we do is very open, meaning that there are all sorts of abilities to add on custom injectors, data ingestion. So we can either write or you can write your own ingestion using our REST API or those external activities, as George was mentioning, to bring in data from any source.
Awesome, thank you. George, how many wells can the PetroVisor platform process daily and or monthly, do you think?
Well, I mean, we have a load test running since a couple months now that is processing 10,000 wells with hourly data every day. We have been doing projects all over Europe and the Middle East where we have our customers in Europe, for instance, with 20,000 wells, where we generate and evaluate 200,000 workover opportunities. And just since that's a workflow that doesn't have to run every day, this is something that we run monthly, but it still runs overnight. So there's that.
Awesome. Here's a good question from SM. Which language of programming is used for PetroVisor? So I know that we've mentioned C#. Are there additional languages that can be used?
Yeah, so I'll take that one. So C# is a language that we have very highly integrated into PetroVisor, but it is not the only language you can use. So you can also use R. We also have some connectors for Python. So you can bring in because of that flexible API that I mentioned before, you could technically use any language to integrate into the PetroVisor platform.
Great. That actually leads us into another good question from Thomas. Is this a Spotfire-based platform coded in our C# language?
It is not a Spotfire-based platform, but we do support Spotfire as an output element. So it is a completely built from scratch platform that the team has worked on very hard for the past 10 years to develop this unstructured database and all these connectors and workflows into it.
Right. Thank you. Well, I want to reemphasize, thank you for everybody for joining today. Really appreciate everybody's time. This recording will be available on our YouTube channel as well as on our website, datagration.com. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.